Well, first off, good morning, and thanks for joining us here at the Guys, Games, and Beer room at the Midwest Gaming Classic. I'm Sean P1 from the Cartridge Club, and I'm just going to go through the rest of this lovely panel with me first. We have, at the end, Eric, the Mighty Q-Dog. Beside me, we have the Musty Hobbit. To my right, we have Dean Lasagna. It's a longtime friend. And we have, at the end, Ryan, It's Rocket Sauce. So we're all members of this community, the Cartridge Club. So just before we get started, we're here today to talk about building a community and what it means to sort of foster that and how to help strengthen it, make it grow. I'm sure everybody in this room can think of at least one gaming community that they've been a part of or they know of online. Maybe just shout a couple out.
Nintendo Age.
Right? Nintendo Age is a good one. Any others? Right? Church? That's right, Mr. G's. Everybody loves Mr. G's. Yeah, so there's lots of them. There's gaming communities all over the place. And they exist everywhere, and a lot of them do things good and best practices and stuff. And a lot of people belong to them. So why one more? Why is there a Cartridge Club? What is it? What does it mean? So it started myself and my brother. We play games together. We've grown up playing games. It's what we do. And it was August 2012. We were sitting at Tim Hortons in Canada. I'm from Canada, so is Dean. And we were playing Final Fantasy IV. It's one of our favorite games. It's my favorite game. It was the first RPG he beat on his own when he was 6. He was very proud of that. And we were playing it together. I was playing on the PSP, and he was playing on the Game Boy Advance. And we were sitting down having a coffee. It was a Saturday, and we were talking about it. And at the time, it was like, you know what, this is great. I'm really enjoying having this conversation. But wouldn't it be cool if there was other people that we could talk to about this game, like instead of just the two of us having the same conversations over and over again that we've had for 10 years, 15 years, what if there was other people who, could engage and get involved and have these conversations? And so, it was sort of his brainchild at the time we were unaware of any, if there was any, Game of the Month podcasts. So we started a Game of the Month club, and we started in September that year. So 1 month later, the first game we chose was A Link to the Past. So we had a small YouTube channel at the time, and so we went on there and we said, this is what we're going to do. It's a new idea. We're going to start with this game. Hopefully, some people can come on and play and have a good time and talk about it. And the first show was the two of us, two of our friends from YouTube, and my best friend that I'd known since I was 12. And at that point, we were like, this could be it. We might never do this again. We might have nobody play, nobody come talk, anything like that. And the end result was, after that episode, we found there was a lot of people who thought that, this might be a fun thing to do. So people started, coming and asking, hey, what game is next? What game is next? How do I get on the show? How do I do podcasts? And then so in episode 2, we did Silent Hill 2, and we had Dean on there for the first time. And in that episode, it was myself and Dean and Mark and my two other guests, Kevin and Darren. And at that time, Dean said, what if this wasn't just a couple of people playing games, but what if we, grew it into more than that? What if we expanded it beyond just a Game of the Month podcast to incorporate just people hanging out and talking? And so since then, that's what has happened. The club has grown over the last 5 years. We're ending season 5 here in August. And it's become so much more than just a Game of the Month podcast. It's become this massive, to me, it seems massive, community of people, friends, who get together and talk about games and share their love for them. There's some content creators. There's people who just play games. People just talk, and it's been a really wonderful experience that has grown to the point that it has because of the community, the people who have come in and made it special. So it wasn't a case of here's 4 or 5 people really driving this effort. It was everybody came in, contributed, and everybody had something to offer, whether they had a YouTube channel or they had nothing, whether they were just somebody who liked games. And we all have been really blessed to get to the point now that we get along so well and we have this wonderful place. And it was, so we sat down before this panel and we were like, how did it get to the point? Because you don't like to think about it, but sometimes occasionally on the internet, there can be people who cause problems. And that can hurt some communities. And we've been very fortunate in the last 5 years to avoid that. So we were sort of wondering, how did that happen? How did we get to the point that we are a group of people with common interests, but also differences. Clearly, just in height alone, Musty's easily 3 feet taller than I am. But different backgrounds, different stories, different ways that we got to gaming, different ways that we got to the club, and yet we still have this common thing that brings us all together. And one of the biggest things is it's the fact that it is the people working to make the community what it is, as opposed to it's the people that drive it as opposed to the content that drives it. It's not about being a content creator and building around that. It's about being decent people to each other. My brother likes to tell a story, and if he was here, he would have told this story, that we moved around a lot as kids, and he's very introverted, so it's hard for him to make friends. It's also hard for me to talk with my brother when he's not here because I miss him. But he would go to new schools, and he wouldn't know anybody, but he always had one friend in common with people, and that was Mario, or Mario, because I'm in America now. So they would have this common friend, and he would be able to talk to people, and just by knowing that they had played games, they had this bridge. And we really used that to help sort of grow all of the community and push what that is. And it's every person who's come in has contributed something to the community. And so this panel that we've assembled here is four different guys that have all contributed different things along the way, and they're going to each tell you, what it is that they've done and what the club means to them and stuff. And I'm really just sort of the intro guy. So luckily I'll be done here in a second. And so everybody's brought their own topic, their own sort of thing to the community to make it be more than just here's a bunch of people with videos on this website, and it's really here's a bunch of friends who also occasionally make amateur videos on YouTube. And there's also a lot of work that goes behind that, and a lot of like infrastructure and stuff like that. But there's a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication, and nobody in my mind has done more hard work and more legwork. Actually physically, because he's been to like 100 different countries in the last 5 years, than the man to my right here, who is, or your left, my right, who is Dean Lasagna from Round 2 Gaming. So I'm going to turn things over to Dean. I'm going to let him sort of talk about some of his experiences and some of the hard work and the effort and what it is to help build a community.
Thanks, Sean. So for all you guys in the audience, I just want to quickly go through and have you guys think about a game that you love. Could be your favorite game of all time. Could be a game that you have a lot of childhood nostalgia with. Could be a game you're playing now that you're just really enjoying. Just think about that. Once you got it, I want you to turn to somebody right now who you don't know. Somebody who you didn't come here with or who's in your group that you haven't had a really good chance to speak to. And just tell them the name of that game, if everybody could. Awesome. This is great. So this is the point, guys. First of all, how many of you said Final Fantasy VII? Nobody. You guys are crazy. Okay, the point is that everybody here had an answer to that question. And you might not have known each other, but you guys all share a passion for something, for gaming. You guys all had some experience in your past where a game meant something to you, or maybe even more recently. And that is the backbone of a community. It's really just a group of people getting together over common interests. When the Cartridge Club started early on, like Sean said, about 5 years ago, we knew we didn't want to have a community or a club that was a strong content hub with an underlying fan-based community. We wanted to flip that idea on its head and have a strong community with an underlying content hub. We still wanted strong content, but we wanted those content creators to be able to take a break, to go on vacation, to spend more time with their family, and still have the community interact with each other. We wanted the conversations to transcend beyond the latest YouTube video or the latest podcast. We wanted to still have that strength, even if there was no content at all. And through that, it's a very different approach than if we were to take the former content-heavy community. Instead of curating videos and podcasts, you're almost curating the community itself. So when you're starting a community like this, or if you're even joining one, you're going to come across a fundamental hurdle. Everybody hits it. and that is the accessibility for newcomers. You have to make sure that's there, or else your community never grows in size or in strength. And it's tricky. I mean, we've all been in situations, every one of us here, where we've had to integrate with a group of people. You could have been a new kid in class. You could have been have a new set of coworkers. You could have joined a new sports team. You could have been that yoga class that you got talked into going that one time. You know, everybody has had to integrate into a group of people, and irrespective of how comfortable you are with yourself, you're never quite sure how accommodating or how accepting they're going to be. All you can hope for is that they accept you into their circle. So there is a little bit of work that goes behind that. When we were putting the community together, we knew that we didn't want to have all of our efforts go into a nice website with nice thumbnails and, you know, a great podcast. We wanted to extend beyond that. So we felt that in order to manage that organic growth, and just to give you an example, say this front row here, they're best friends since high school. They've started a community together, and now they want to grow it. So this gentleman here tells the person behind him, hey, come into the club. If it's up to him to hold the other's hand, to adopt him into the club, to be the only person interacting, it's not fun for either one of them, right? It's a lot of work for this gentleman. And it's not as fun because he could just talk to him privately. We want to make sure that everybody in the first row speaks to everybody in the second row so that we can eventually reach that third row. And from there, hopefully the first row would talk to the third row, the second to the fourth, the last to the first. That's how you build a really strong community. So when we were getting new members starting to join the forums, we made a point. We wanted to reach out to them any way we could to make them feel welcome. When you start a forum and you put in your birthday, how good does it feel? You're at home one night, you're watching hockey, you're eating poutine, and you're signing up for a forum, and you're putting in your birthday. And then 2 days later, it's your birthday, and you're suddenly getting a bunch of well wishes from people you may not have known before. Hey, happy birthday, John. Happy birthday, Sarah. You know, it's from the community that makes you feel a part of it. Or maybe when you're signing up, you said, hey, I really like the Neo Geo. The next time any member has a question about the Neo Geo, instead of going to Google or social media, maybe ask that person, hey, you know you're into Neo Geo. You just joined our group. What are some games that could get me into that system? Those are the types of things that really help people feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves. And I think that's something really special that the Cartridge Club has done amongst other communities. We even now, right here at MGC, have members that have been with us since the beginning, 5 years, that are sharing accommodations with members that have just started this past year. So if I were to wrap it back to the conversation we had earlier, where you guys all turned around and talked to your friends about the different games, you know, we all had a different answer to that because we all share that same passion. And I think that's something that's it's just really special, you know. And I don't think anybody on this table can speak to integrating as well into a club as Musty here, who didn't join us from the beginning, but has become a staple in our community.
Thank you, Dean. Hi, everybody. So yeah, I joined the club at the beginning of 2016. So I've joined about three years in. Crash 2 was my first game of the month. But let me first, I just want to get a show of hands of who in the room here has attempted to join a club and just felt like a total outsider. Had a hard time integrating because of that. See, this is a common thing, and it can be a really daunting effort to try and find a way to mix in with people. Now, I want to give you a little bit of my history on how I found the club itself, and it was actually through outreach from some of the existing club members. There's one of the podcasts, STC Pod, was doing YouTube videos. I'd actually done a video focusing on my how to collect. And one of the big things was to find things like Facebook communities, buy, sell, trade groups, those sorts of things. And I think it was Bill reached out and said, if you want a good community, you should come check out the Cartridge Club. And through that, it's comical because about 3 years prior, I remember seeing the announcement video for Link to the Past, and I was like, I couldn't do that. I'm not on YouTube. I don't know any of these people. This would be totally foreign to me. So I reluctantly now didn't join in at that point. But because of the outreach, I looked into it, signed up just, I think it was maybe the 2nd of January. So I missed out on some of the, I think you guys were doing the one console challenge that year too. I missed out on that. Apparently not. Apparently I didn't miss out on much. But the big thing there is that this club filled a gap for me. As a collector, I felt like I wasn't playing very much. And this was a way that I was sure that I would at least play a game a month. At least, and it has since become a staple, and I for the most part, play 1, if not 2 games every month because of the monthly shows that are done, and because the community wants to have these conversations. But getting in early, those first couple of weeks, I remember signing up for the forums, and I think within hours, there was I think it was a tweet out from you, Dean, to everyone just welcoming me to the forums. Hey, we have a new forum member, and I was like, well, this is great. I'm this small fish in this big pond, and all of a sudden, I have what is effectively club leadership saying, "Hey, look at this guy. He's part of us now." And that felt that welcome was just it put the nail in it, and it said, "Yes, this is the right thing." And it engaged me from moment one. And so that first month, I played through the game. I remember, tweeting out pictures of my progress and getting interaction from people like everyone here on how I was playing along, the 3-word review, those type of things, those kind of community things that we even evolve into the show, really make it fun to be a part of that. And it was the first of many. Now, the thing that came up after that, in February of that year, one of the club members decided, hey, we all like to talk to each other online. Why don't we just hang out one night a week? And Paul, Cartridge Canuck, decided to just start a Google Hangout. And so every Tuesday night, we would get together. And I got into that feeling totally starstruck. We had, because at that point, I was maybe a channel of 50 subs. And I was in there with people who I've been watching their videos for years. And we were just having a conversation. We were talking about what trailer just came out. We were talking about the games we picked up that week. And it just became so commonplace that when we come to events like this, it's just like the conversation just continues. We live on opposite ends of this continent. In some cases, we live on other continents, and the conversation just continues. It's great. Now that has become, like I said, that staple. But by that point, thank you. I'm the only one with a page flip. So let me see here. The one thing, I had gotten invited on then that March for the Alan Wake episode, which was, if you haven't played Alan Wake, play Alan Wake. It's amazing. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I think I may have had something to do with that. But I wanted to make sure, as the new person, I didn't want to be on the wrong end of an inside joke or not understand references and things like that. And so I took it upon myself to listen to the entire backlog of podcasts up to that point. Don't be sorry. Every single one of them was great. In fact, I've probably gone back and listened to some of them more than once at this point. But I came to find that there were no inside jokes. There was nothing that you guys did such a good job of making sure that the newcomer doesn't need to know all this backstory. If you were jumping in at episode 50 or you're jumping in at episode 1, you can just do that. And if you want to go back, or if you want to skip an episode because you haven't played that game yet, that's perfectly fine. And it's something that you guys as club leadership and you guys as podcast hosts have made that part easy for people. And so that's how we can pull in people, who have only come across us from, an advertisement they saw somewhere, or their sponsorship of a gaming convention, or this panel. I think that is it's something that you can look for. It's something that if you're trying to build that community, this is the way to find that. Now, the other thing I just want to mention is as a creator, one of the things that I find is a huge advantage as a creator with a community like this is that I have a ton of people that I can bounce my ideas off of, and a bunch of people that I can brainstorm. And if the idea is total garbage, it's fine. It's totally fine. But you get that little bit of feedback, and you find ways to tinker with things, or you find ways to take assets that you used in one video and change them up just a little bit, and suddenly you've got something that hits. And it's as I don't know, as one of the I'm not a rookie, as one of the less veteran people, I feel like it puts me in a good place. And the fact that you guys were also willing to let me post. I think I might have been one of you had an initial core of content people, and at one point I reached out to you and I said, hey, any chance I could put my stuff on the site? And you guys were all over it, and you said yes. You said yes, and you were like, you're the only person I could think of to put on the site. Yeah. Oh, well, it worked. But yeah, I mean, so I think I'm going to wrap probably there, but I do want to head off. So Ryan, who's up next, he's been around for much longer than I, but it was really those hangouts is how I got to know Ryan. And I'm going to hand off to him now.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Musty, I believe your first hangout was also my first hangout, too.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
that's right.
I can't remember how many episodes I was, but I was just, I believe, I was in school at the time. The nights that they were doing the hangouts when I was getting out, I could actually just put it on my phone and listen basically on my drive home. But then eventually, I think Paul eventually messaged me. He's like, come on, get in here. Why not? You're in the chat room. We'll get in here. And then I said, F it, might as well. So from there, that's how I got to know Musty through the hangouts, and over the time. So I guess my general question for everybody is, I guess maybe a show of hands, who has a YouTube channel or a blog or any kind of content to create? And then, okay, now who doesn't? If you could raise your hands. Okay. Well, the four gentlemen to my left all have a YouTube channel or a blog, and I essentially don't. So by that, I mean, like, you don't have to be a YouTube, person or even blog. You can just enjoy the content. Now, I've participated in the show, several of them, because so I joined around the first season for the Cartridge Club. When it was just the only thing on the Cartridge Club was essentially the Game of the Month podcast. And I joined around the Super Metroid, which is episode 4 or 6. Is that one? 5, 6? Sure. Yeah. And I joined. The way I found out about these guys is because I was a big fan of NES Complex. He was the first person that I actually kind of discovered with the retro gaming community on YouTube. Now, with that is, I was actually collecting at the time. I've been collecting probably since 2001. And I've immersed a pile of loose NES and N64 games, and I was looking for something to store my games in because I was just using milk crates at the time, and I was like, no, this probably can't be the best way. And one of the first things I did, I was just looking for like cases or something to store it, and the first video pop up was NES Complex. From there, I subscribed because I liked his content, and I started going back to his old videos, and I discovered he had a podcast called Retro Rejects. And I started getting into that because at first I didn't like the idea of podcasts. I don't know why. But essentially I got sick and tired of having to listen to like the same, I guess, music over and over again on my iPad while I was, walking on a treadmill or something. And I figured since I was a big fan of NES Complex, I'll give his podcast a try. And it might have been 1 or 2 episodes in before I heard Sean and Mark on the episode, and they're talking. And I remember when I got done, I think listening to that episode, I went to Twitter, and I saw that I think I was already, I was following Sean, and he put out some tweet from something he messaged in that episode. He had a Cabbage Patch doll named Jonathan, still has it, and it bears a very striking resemblance to Sean. Yeah, and he put a joke tweet out there, and I responded to it, made a little joke back, and Sean responded right back to me, and that was like the first time I've noticed, because I think I was following like all your big, your names, your AVGNs and whatnot, and I'm not trying to poo-poo them. They're all great. They make wonderful content, but this is the first time that someone actually who I consider who I was following responded to me on Twitter, and it wasn't it seems like to me, and like I said, I don't want to poo-poo on people, but the bigger name YouTube celebrities, they won't respond to you unless you maybe say something negative to them or be really mean to them, and then they seem to all gang up on you. So I mean, like I said, to me that was really nice. It showed that there was a real person there, and was willing to have a conversation even with a nobody on online, basically, where my only presence was just Twitter. And before that actually allowed me to say, okay, well, I was a big fan of the Retro Rejects. I need something else to listen to, because one podcast a month isn't cutting it. I'm running out of stuff that I want to listen to. So I said, well, I'll check out I like the idea for the game of the month. I will check out the Cartridge Club. So, and the first episode I tuned into was the Super Metroid one. And then I said, okay, well, I'm going to go back and start with Link to the Past. I might have skipped Silent Hill 2 because it was one of those ones where I was afraid of spoilers, even though they don't really spoil it on the... Now the newer episodes, we give the spoiler warning wide open. But I was afraid something would be spoiled for me for a game I really wanted to play. And I like the idea, essentially what kind of drove me into participating with him, because I didn't even really participate with the Super Metroid episode. I joined around Shadow of the Colossus, where it was the first time that I was going to play with the club, because I never had it, and I just picked it up. And I figured since they're playing, well, this is a great time to go after a game on my backlog. And it was fun, actually. I was playing along with them, and every time I beat a Colossus or something, I would go to the forums, because at the time we were really trying to push the forums. We still are, but it was nice having a conversation with people online about what you were thinking of the game that I was playing. So, and essentially I went back and listened to it. I actually share the same opinion with Sean. I'm not going to spoil that with you. You can go back and listen to that podcast if you really want to. But since going forward, since going forward, over the years, the club is. So actually, I actually didn't appear on the podcast this season 2, which is Beautiful Joe was the first time. And Sean reached out, or actually I reached to Sean because he was looking for a last guest, and I was really looking forward to playing Beautiful Joe. It's been in my backlog, and I reached out to him and said, hey, I would love to be a part of the show. He responded back. He said, great, perfect, you're in. And going forward, I remember I was incredibly nervous the first time I was on the show too. But it introduced me to Rambox, actually, and then he reached out to me right after that too and said, hey, would you like to be a guest on Retro Fandango, which is another club podcast? It might have been, was it the second official maybe podcast for the club? Yeah. So, and that was after Retro Fandango started. I went to Retro Fandango because I was like, oh, it's more content. And then Retro Fandango quickly became my favorite podcast because Mars and Vox are fantastic. And then when Vox asked me to be on it, I was like, my favorite podcast is asking me to be on the show as a guest. It's fantastic, which, like I said, over the years, I think it's inspired more people like that going forward with Vox and Mars starting their own they were already having their own thing, but then them going forward with their own podcasts inspired others to do the same. And more people, I think, started, developing the community by creating their own content, maybe inspire their YouTube channel or creating their own podcasts. And essentially I tune into everyone who's in the club because it's nice having this community. I've kind of gotten away from the bigger names. Not saying they're bad. It's just that I started to enjoy the content more, maybe because of the interaction with the club. And like I said, the only thing I've really done, I used to write for my buddy's website. I kind of would like to get back into doing that. It's just, and that's the great thing about the club is you're not forced into continuously putting out content. You can do whatever you want. And like I said, whenever I feel like getting back into doing it, I will. But it's great. Over the years, the evolution for the club, we've done more and more things. And I like to thank Sean for that because one of the things I've always wanted to do, I always was in love with the idea of E3. I remember back when I was in grade school and the N64 was getting released, and buying EGM magazine and just looking through the panels of what games are coming up in the near future. And that inspired me so much. I loved E3, and then eventually, evolved with the internet. You could see the coverage live, the concerts, the post shows and everything. I love all that. And I always wanted to go to E3. But last year was I kind of kicked the idea to Sean that, hey, why don't we do an E3 coverage show, and have like a panel and just do like a discussion. And it honestly, I think it filled that hole where I'm like, I don't think I need to go to E3 anymore. I had so much fun doing that, which also we've done other things over the times too, like the CC Top 100, which was essentially the top 100 video games created by we deemed the greatest 100 games, and it was voted on by the club. Everyone essentially submitted 100 games. And then from then we developed kind of like a point system, and essentially was the 100 games that the club loved the most. It's not essentially top best, the best, but and then that was a lot of fun putting that together. I'm sure for Sean too. And we've also did the way we closed out the year. If you ever see the Video Game Awards too, I think the main vote for the game of the year was participated on by the people who submit a vote, and of course the industry gets a vote too. Well, we essentially did that for the Cartridge Club too, where everyone who's in the Cartridge Club submitted a vote. And also because we have so much content creators, we did one for podcast of the year too. And we asked people to tell, even if people who aren't, in the club, who maybe tune into your show, if you want to come in and vote, it'd be great. It's, and essentially we had more voters for the podcast of the month than we did game of the year. But still we had about 100 votes come in for that. And the show was fantastic. We had a great time doing that. Me and Musty and the cast. I just want to check one more thing over here. So essentially that was it. Like I said, I've come from essentially nothing. And the club has given me, I'm not saying a new life, but essentially it's fantastic. It makes my life easier. Like I said, I love listening to podcasts. I love seeing that when the club members reveal their podcasts or videos or something, it gives something for me to do or listen to at work. Through Musty, I've discovered Church and Jason's podcasts, the Game Tenants, and old ass retro gamer. So like I said, so I just want to say, you don't have to be a content creator. You can just enjoy the content. And that being said, I'm gonna kick it to Eric, the Mighty Q Dog.
Thanks, Ryan. I'm Eric, sometimes called the Mighty Q Dog, sometimes called other things, but I'll stick with Eric if you don't mind. I guess what I want to do is start with a question for everybody to think about, and that is, why do you come to conventions like MGC or any conventions? I know why I come. We'll talk about it in a bit. But first, I want to talk a little bit about how I joined the club. I've been collecting since about '99, buying games, really. And it was kind of a lonely affair, I think. I actually thought, perhaps naively, that I was the only person out there interested in retro collecting. That went on for many years. And in about 2012 or so, I discovered a YouTube community of retro gaming on YouTube. And I thought this is a great way to sort of expand my interest in the hobby. So we went to Portland Retro Gaming Expo for the first time, and my wife and I, Melissa, we put out a YouTube video, and it was kind of our first attempt to maybe get out into the community and let people know that, you know, we were here, we're doing this stuff too, and it was trying to reach out. And we did that for a little while. We have a really small channel. We did sort of pick up videos and stuff like that, and we weren't really getting that sort of community feel that we were looking for. And so then we joined Twitter. Now, I'm not a big social media person, but we thought, well, we really want to be a part of this community, this retro gaming community. And so we joined Twitter. And that was okay. It was sort of one-sided. We were following people, and we were listening or reading what was going on. And it still wasn't doing it for us. And we were listening, like Ryan mentioned, I think, to Retro Rejects. And we heard about the Cartridge Bros, and we had heard about the Cartridge Club, and we kind of knew about it, but I kind of wanted to play games on my own schedule maybe. So I was like, well, it sounds kind of interesting, but we didn't really participate. And then there was one time where I think P1 or P2 were reaching out, and they said, hey, look, we want somebody, or we need a guest for Metroid Prime. Now, this is one of my favorite games of all time. And I don't think they knew who I was from a hole in the wall, right? They didn't know who I was. But Melissa said, well, Mighty Q Dog, he really likes Metroid Prime. He might be willing to be on your podcast. And they said, sure. They welcomed me with perhaps maybe no knowledge of who I was or anything like that. And they put me right on a podcast. And so that was sort of my first experience, really getting integrated with the community that was the Cartridge Club. And from there, I wanted to participate more. I finally found this group that was willing to say, hey, come join us. Come talk about these games. We've got these forums. We've got these podcasts. Come participate. And so I did. From that point on, the next game I think was Star Fox, and it was Star Fox 64. And I hadn't played Star Fox 64, and I have this little thing where I like to play games in the order of their release, so I played Star Fox. And I went on the forums, and I started talking about Star Fox instead of Star Fox 64. And the thing is I didn't once get the, hey, idiot, it's Star Fox 64. It was fine. Nobody cared, right? It was, we can talk about Star Fox. We can talk about Star Fox 64. So the community in the forums, they were very welcoming. And so as we grew, as we participated more in those forums, we wanted to do more. And even though we were doing videos like pickup videos and stuff like that, my wife and I, we decided we would do a weekly vlog that was really created to contribute or to participate in the club, right? Most of the things that we talk about on there now, or most of the things that we talk about on our videos, relate to the club because that's the community that we found. And that's how we want to interact. That's how we want to share. That's the way that we're growing and sharing in this hobby. And so we do this weekly vlog, right? And because it's weekly, my wife and I, we have 3 kids, and they know about it, right? They know that we're doing this thing. My kids know about our vlog. They know about the Cartridge Club, and we don't have to hide it from them. It's not a thing. It's a perfectly healthy thing for the kids to know. And these guys, they were mentioning, some of these club members, they're sharing accommodations. I've had 3 of these 4 gentlemen in our house. They've met my children. And so I guess what I want to say about that is, the community is what you bring to it. And these guys have brought, we try to bring, we try to be conscious of being kid friendly and being a safe and, a fun and a welcoming environment to the degree that, our kids are known, they ask us about Musty. Oh, are you going to see Musty? They love Musty. They love Rocket Sauce, Oh, are you going to be on a stream, with these guys? So, it's been great in that regard. And so, we're kind of bringing up, and we're not the only ones. There's another family in the club, the Retro Nonsense crew. He's got kids too, and they participate. And so what we're talking about here is a healthy enough community or welcoming enough community that our children are involved. And we may actually see a second generation Cartridge Club, right? Where this is something that's going to continue on. And so I guess, it's really brought getting to know these guys and participating has really brought sort of a larger breadth to the hobby than just buying the games. I've learned a lot from these gentlemen. You can bounce ideas off them, share things. And so the lonely collector that I was maybe back in 2001, I've learned so much from everybody, and I get to participate. And we do the hangouts. People get to share what they've picked up. We get to talk about, what's exciting to us. Hey, look, I just got this item to complete this subset, right? Subset complete, right? So we get to share those things, and we talk on these hangouts. And so it's really grown the hobby for me, because now it's about the games, it's about learning about the games, and it's about sharing those games with other people. It's about sharing that interest. And then going back to my initial question, then, why do people come to these conventions? When we first went to PRGE, it was about buying games. And if I go back and look at that first video, it's embarrassing, because it was just throwing money away at these games, right? But as the years have progressed and we participated with the Cartridge Club, for me at least, these conventions have become about seeing these guys, meeting the people there, and getting that sense of community. And the games is what brought us together. There's still that interest, but it's really about meeting these people and seeing these guys. And so what I guess what I want to say is, whether you're going to be at the Midwest Gaming Classic like this, or PRGE, or MagFest, or Game On Expo, or anything like that, you're going to find a Cartridge Clubber there. You're going to find one of our members at this thing. And so I would encourage everybody, regardless of where you go in the country, and even there's Barrie Game Exchange in Toronto and Barrie, Ontario. Wherever you go, there's going to be a Cartridge Clubber. So we're there. And so it's been a really fulfilling experience having friends at all of these conventions. And so I would encourage everybody to think about, it's a great place. And it gave us that last thing that we were looking for to really make this hobby a spectacular hobby. And so, yeah. I'm sorry, I don't know how to close.
Okay, so while you're here, you came to this panel this morning. Maybe you're tired, you want to sit down. These chairs are very comfortable. Your wallet's burning, you've been on the vendor floor. Maybe you're in a community, you want to help make it better. Maybe you're like, I want to start a community. So you came here to help learn what that is. So all of these stories, other than being an excellent advertisement for the Cartridge Club, had one thing in common, and it's all different engagements, different ways to get involved in something, different ways to help grow something. And the most important thing to us, depending on what type of community you want, but the most important thing for us is to keep the focus on building relationships. Make it be about people. The content should never be more important than the people. It should be about engaging and talking and building friendships and building relationships. And I apologize, because obviously I could have said that in 3 minutes, but the slots are 45 minutes, so we had to fill the rest. But yeah, it's ultimately, if you are in a community or you're looking to start a community, and you know what, this isn't just online. This is your neighborhood. This is at work. It's so easy to wall yourself off and shut yourself off, and it can be difficult to make that first step and say happy birthday to, was it Sarah? Is that who the name you're with, Sarah? To say happy birthday to Sarah. So build relationships. Have the focus be about people and interacting with each other, because you're building a community. If you want to just build anything else, you don't care about people, like the companies. So have that focus be on the people of the community. Have it be on the community, and then you'll be lucky enough. I can honestly say that the last 5 years have been incredible. And I have 4 guys sitting next to me that I never would have met otherwise. And it's because we took the time to learn who they were, even if you can't pronounce their last name. I'm so sorry, Dean. Yeah, and to each of them, it's a different thing, right? So a community is different to everyone. It's not just it's not the same thing. There's no one definition you can give for a community. So for me, like, a community is a place that's more than just the sum of any one person.
I'd say that a community is a place where every single person in this room or out on that floor who's willing to share their passion in a happy, non-toxic way can join and feel like something bigger than themselves.
To me, a community is a place where you can build new friendships and strengthen existing ones.
It's a place where all ideas and voices can be heard.
And for me, it's a place that you can turn to whenever you need to.
All right. So that's the show, folks. And we actually went 24 seconds over, so we're probably getting kicked out of the con now. But if you have any questions, you want to talk to us or anything like that, we're going to be out in the hallway. We're going to be on the vendor floor. A couple of these guys are going to be burning through games. So thank you so much for coming here. And if you enjoyed this panel, please, at 1:30 today, there's another panel in this room that this gentleman is also in. So even if you just want to get more pictures of Muskie, definitely show up for that.